Sophia Bennett stood on the front porch of her own home and stared at a suitcase she had never packed. It sat beside the front door like it belonged there. On top of it rested a large manila envelope with her name written across the front in Andrew's handwriting. For a moment, she thought there had to be some mistake. She checked the house number. She looked at the mailbox. This was her home. The same Charleston house she had lived in for 12 years. The same house where she had celebrated anniversaries, hosted holidays, and spent countless nights praying that one day a baby's laughter would fill the empty rooms. Her fingers tightened around her purse. A cold feeling spread through her chest. Slowly, she walked toward the door and picked up the envelope. The papers inside were divorce documents. She stared at the first page, unable to process the words. Then she heard laughter coming from inside the house. Not just Andrew's laughter. A woman's laughter, too. Sophia pushed the door open. The dining room lights glowed warmly against the evening sky outside. The table was set for dinner. Candles burned softly. Andrew Whitmore sat at the head of the table with a young blonde woman beside him. Chloe. Sophia had seen her once before at one of Andrew's company events. Across the room stood Victoria Whitmore, Andrew's mother. She held a wine glass in one hand and wore the same satisfied expression Sophia had seen for years whenever another fertility treatment failed. Nobody looked surprised to see her. It was as if they had been waiting. Andrew stood up first. "Sophia," he said calmly. "You're home." Home. The word almost made her laugh. She glanced at the suitcase outside, then back at him. "What is this?" she asked quietly. Chloe lowered her eyes, but said nothing. Victoria answered before Andrew could. It's time everyone moved forward. Sophia felt her stomach twist. For 12 years, she had tried to earn Victoria's approval. 12 years of family dinners where every conversation somehow returned to grandchildren. 12 years of hearing relatives offer sympathy that felt more like criticism. 12 years of doctor appointments, medications, procedures, and disappointment. 5 fertility treatments. Thousands of dollars. Countless tears shed behind closed bathroom doors where nobody could see them. She remembered every negative test, every phone call, every hopeful beginning that ended in heartbreak. Through all of it, she stayed. Because she loved Andrew. Because she believed marriage meant staying when things became difficult. Andrew folded his hands together. "This isn't working anymore," he said. "We've both known that for a long time." Sophia looked at him carefully. The man standing before her barely resembled the husband she had married at 26. He wouldn't meet her eyes for more than a second. Victoria stepped closer. "A family needs a future," she said. "Andrew deserves one." The meaning was clear. It always had been. Sophia was 38 years old. In Victoria's eyes, she was the woman who had failed to provide an heir. Nothing else mattered. Not her loyalty. Not her kindness. Not the years she had devoted to the family. Andrew reached into his pocket and placed a key on the dining table. "I think it's best if you leave tonight." Sophia stood completely still. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it. Then her phone vibrated inside her purse. A message appeared on the screen. It was from Dr. Lucas Sterling. The words were short. "Please call me as soon as you can. Your test results are ready." Sophia looked at the message. Then she looked back at the people standing in front of her. And for the first time that evening, she realized something was about to change. The room seemed to fade around Sophia. Andrew was still talking. Victoria was still standing there with her wine glass. Chloe remained silent beside the table. Yet all Sophia could focus on was the message glowing on her phone. Dr. Lucas Sterling had never sent messages like that before. Every update during the past few months had been handled through scheduled appointments or brief office calls. This felt different. She slipped the phone back into her purse. Andrew took a step forward. "The guest room at the Harbor Inn is already paid for through the weekend," he said. "You will have time to figure things out." Sophia stared at him. 12 years together, and this was how he chose to end it. Not with a conversation. Not with honesty. A prepaid hotel room and a suitcase left outside. "How long?" she asked quietly. Andrew looked confused. "How long what? How long have you been planning this?" For the first time, he looked uncomfortable. Chloe shifted in her chair. Victoria answered instead. "Long enough." Sophia nodded slowly. The answer told her everything she needed to know. She picked up her purse and turned toward the front door. Nobody stopped her. Nobody apologized. Nobody even asked if she was all right. 10 minutes later, she sat alone inside her car parked beneath a row of oak trees 2 blocks away. The Charleston evening air felt heavy. She locked the doors and finally called the number. Dr. Lucas Sterling answered almost immediately. Sophia, I got your message. His voice softened. Are you somewhere safe? The question caught her off guard. Why would you ask that? There was a brief pause. Because I have been trying to reach you for over an hour. Sophia looked through the windshield at passing traffic. I am fine. What did the tests show? Another pause. Longer this time. Then she heard him exhale. I wanted to tell you this in person. Her heart began to race. For years, every important phone call had carried disappointment. She knew the feeling too well. The careful voice. The hesitation. The preparation for bad news. She braced herself. Just tell me. Sophia, the procedure worked. She closed her eyes. She was not sure she had heard correctly. What? The inflammation markers have improved dramatically. Better than I expected. She gripped the steering wheel. That is good, but what does that mean? Lucas sounded almost relieved that he could finally say it aloud. It means we found the real problem. The endometriosis was likely interfering for years. Tears began filling her eyes before she realized it. Not from sadness. From exhaustion. From hearing someone finally explain what nobody else had. You spent years blaming yourself, Lucas continued. You should not have. Sophia lowered her head. She remembered every failed treatment. Every holiday dinner. Every sideways glance from Victoria. Every moment she wondered whether she had somehow failed as a wife. Lucas spoke again. There is one more thing. Sophia looked up. Cars continued moving through the intersection ahead. The world seemed completely normal. What is it? She whispered. His answer came gently. Your blood work confirms a pregnancy. Her breath stopped. She could not speak. She could not move. Then Lucas added something that changed everything. Sophia, you are carrying twins. For several seconds, Sophia could not say a word. The sounds of traffic outside faded into the background. She simply sat there gripping the steering wheel while tears rolled silently down her cheeks. Twins. After 12 years. After every failed treatment. After every doctor who had told her the odds were nearly impossible. Lucas allowed her a moment before speaking again. Sophia, are you still there? She laughed through her tears. It was not a happy laugh exactly. It was disbelief. Twins? She whispered. Yes. The hormone levels were unusually high, so we ran additional testing. We confirmed it this afternoon. Sophia covered her mouth. Her entire body trembled. For years she had imagined hearing those words. She had pictured telling Andrew. She had imagined decorating a nursery, arguing over baby names, calling friends and family with good news instead of another disappointment. And now it had finally happened. Yet she was sitting alone in her car with divorce papers in her purse. Lucas spoke carefully. There is something else you should know. Because of your medical history, I want to monitor you closely. The pregnancy looks healthy, but I would like to see you in person tomorrow. Sophia nodded before remembering he could not see her. Okay. Are you alone? He asked. She looked at the darkening sky beyond the windshield. Yes. Another brief silence followed. Do you have someone you can call? Sophia thought about it. Her mother had passed away years earlier. Her father had died when she was in her 20s. Most of her closest friendships had faded during the long years of fertility treatments and family stress. The truth felt painful. Not really. Lucas sounded concerned. Then promise me you will take care of yourself tonight. No stress if possible. Plenty of water. Get some rest. Sophia almost laughed at the idea of a stress-free evening. I will try. After they ended the call, she remained in the car for nearly 20 minutes. The ultrasound appointment was only days away. There would be pictures, tiny heartbeats, proof that the life she had wanted for so long was finally beginning. Slowly, her hand moved to her stomach. 2 babies. Andrew's children. The thought brought fresh tears. She should have felt excited. Instead, she felt lost. Part of her wanted to drive back to the house immediately, to walk through the front door and place the test results in front of him, to watch his face when he learned the truth. But another part of her remembered the candles on the dining room table, Chloe sitting comfortably in her chair, Victoria's satisfied smile, the suitcase waiting outside. Those things had not happened by accident. They had planned it. They had chosen it. Sophia started the engine. Rather than returning home, she drove toward the Harbor Inn. The hotel overlooked a small marina near the water. By the time she checked in, the sky had turned dark. The woman at the front desk handed her a room key and welcomed her with a polite smile. Sophia thanked her and headed upstairs. The room was clean and quiet. She placed her suitcase beside the bed and sat down. For the first time all evening, She opened the divorce papers completely. Most of it was exactly what she expected. Division of property, financial terms, signatures. Then one page caught her attention. Attached near the back was a printed email. She frowned and read it again. The message had been sent nearly 3 weeks earlier. Not from Andrew. From Victoria. Addressed directly to Chloe. Sophia's pulse quickened as she read a single sentence highlighted near the center of the page. Once the paperwork is finished, Andrew will finally be free to build the family he deserves. Sophia read the sentence 3 times before setting the papers down. Her hands felt cold. Once the paperwork is finished, Andrew will finally be free to build the family he deserves. There it was. Not hidden behind polite words. Not buried beneath legal language. Victoria had already decided what Andrew's future would look like, and she had apparently been discussing it with Chloe weeks before Sophia ever saw the suitcase on the porch. She stared at the email for a long moment. Then she folded the papers and placed them back inside the envelope. Exhaustion settled over her like a heavy blanket. The day had started with uncertainty. It had ended with divorce papers, betrayal, and the discovery that she was carrying twins. No human heart was built to process all of that at once. Sometime after midnight, she finally fell asleep. The next morning, Sophia woke before sunrise. For a few seconds, she forgot where she was. Then the unfamiliar hotel room came into focus. Reality returned immediately. She sat up slowly and placed a hand on her stomach. The memory of Lucas's words came rushing back. Twins. A small smile appeared despite everything. It lasted only a moment before her phone rang. Dr. Lucas Sterling. Good morning, he said. How are you feeling? Sophia walked toward the window overlooking the marina. Small fishing boats rocked gently in the water below. I have had better mornings. Lucas chuckled softly. Fair answer. There was a brief pause. Then his tone became more serious. I would still like to see you today. I can drive over. Actually, I have a better idea. Sophia frowned slightly. What do you mean? I have already reviewed your latest scans with another specialist. Someone I trust. Sophia had spent enough years around doctors to know that specialists rarely agreed on everything. The fact that Lucas sounded confident caught her attention. And he would like to meet you. Who is he? Lucas hesitated for a second. My father. Sophia blinked. Your father is a doctor? No. Lucas laughed. Not even close. But he has funded women's health programs for years. He takes a personal interest in cases like yours. That answer raised more questions than it answered. Before she could ask another one, Lucas continued. I told him about your situation. Not the private details. Just enough for him to understand what you have been through. Sophia felt slightly uncomfortable. Why? Because after everything that happened, I was worried about you. His honesty surprised her. Most doctors kept a careful professional distance. Lucas never seemed cold, but he had always remained respectful and measured. Today sounded different. More personal. Sophia, he said gently, I know this is a difficult time. My father happens to be in Charleston today. He asked if he could meet you. Why would he want that? Another short silence. Honestly, I am not completely sure. Around noon, Sophia found herself sitting at a quiet waterfront cafe overlooking Charleston Harbor. She almost canceled twice before arriving. Part of her felt nervous. Part of her simply wanted answers. 10 minutes later, a silver luxury sedan pulled into the parking lot. An older gentleman stepped out. Tall, well-dressed, silver hair, confident without seeming arrogant. He looked around until his eyes found Sophia. Then something unexpected happened. He stopped walking, just for a second, as though he had seen someone he recognized. His expression changed completely. Not surprise, not confusion, something deeper, something emotional. When he finally reached the table, he never took his eyes off her face. Miss Bennett, he asked quietly. Sophia nodded. The man swallowed hard. Then he said something she did not understand at all. You have your father's eyes. Sophia froze. Her father had been dead for nearly 14 years. Yet somehow this complete stranger was looking at her as though he had known him personally. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Sophia simply stared at the older man across the table. The breeze coming off the harbor gently moved the water behind him, but everything else seemed strangely still. You knew my father? She finally asked. The man's eyes softened. Thomas Bennett? He gave a slow nod. Yes, very well. Sophia felt her pulse quicken. She had spent years talking about her father in the past tense. Years carrying memories that had slowly faded around the edges. Yet this stranger spoke his name as if he had seen him last week. How? She asked. The older man pulled out a chair and sat down. My name is Arthur Sterling. Sophia recognized the name immediately. Almost everyone in South Carolina did. Arthur Sterling had built one of the largest investment firms in the region. His name appeared on hospitals, university buildings, and charity foundations throughout the Southeast. She had seen newspaper articles about him for years. She had simply never expected to meet him. Arthur smiled faintly. Your father and I met when we were both young men trying to build careers. We became friends before either of us had much money. Sophia listened quietly. Arthur glanced toward the water. 45 years of friendship. We raised families. We celebrated birthdays. We took fishing trips. We argued about baseball. A small laugh escaped him. He never could admit when he was wrong. For the first time that day, Sophia smiled. That sounded exactly like her father. Arthur's expression grew more serious. When Thomas passed away, I was overseas. By the time I returned, everything had already happened. Sophia lowered her eyes. Her father's death had come suddenly after a heart attack. She remembered the shock, the confusion, the endless paperwork and phone calls that followed. She had been overwhelmed. I tried to find you afterward, Arthur continued. But you had moved. The contact information I had was outdated. Years went by. Eventually, I assumed you wanted privacy. Sophia shook her head. I never knew anyone was looking. Arthur nodded slowly. I realize that now. Before either of them could say more, Lucas arrived. He stepped onto the cafe patio carrying a folder beneath one arm. He greeted Sophia first. Then he looked at his father. You found her. Arthur gave a quiet smile. Looks that way. Lucas sat down beside them. Sophia noticed something unusual. Both men seemed relieved. Not because she had shown up for a meeting. Because they had found her. The feeling was difficult to explain, but she could sense it. Arthur folded his hands together. There is something else we need to discuss. Sophia's stomach tightened. The seriousness in his voice was impossible to miss. Arthur exchanged a glance with Lucas before continuing. Several years before your father died, he updated his estate plans. Sophia frowned slightly. I do not understand. Arthur spoke carefully. Thomas established a trust. A long-term arrangement designed to protect certain assets until the proper heir could be located. Sophia blinked. Heir? You. The word landed heavily between them. Sophia stared at him. There must be some mistake. Arthur shook his head. There is no mistake. Lucas opened the folder and carefully removed several documents. Nothing looked dramatic. Just ordinary papers. Yet the expressions on both men's faces made it clear they carried enormous significance. Arthur leaned forward. Sophia, your father left behind far more than you realize. And for nearly 14 years, everything has been waiting for you. The words stayed with Sophia long after the meeting ended. Everything has been waiting for you. She replayed them again and again during the drive to Savannah the following afternoon. Lucas had insisted she should not spend the next several weeks alone in a hotel while navigating a high-risk pregnancy and a divorce. Arthur had made a simple offer. Stay at the Sterling estate until she had time to decide what came next. Sophia had almost refused. She had always been independent. She had never liked feeling like a burden. But after a sleepless night and another uncomfortable call from Andrew's attorney requesting signatures, she finally accepted. The Sterling estate sat just outside Savannah on several acres of beautifully maintained land. It was large without feeling cold, elegant without feeling showy. The kind of place built by people who valued comfort more than attention. As Arthur's car pulled through the front gates, Sophia found herself gripping her purse nervously. You look like you are arriving for a job interview, Arthur said with a smile. Sophia laughed softly. Maybe because this all feels unreal. That feeling will pass. Arthur's voice carried a calm certainty. You belong here as much as anyone. She was not sure she believed him yet. The house staff welcomed her warmly. No one treated her like an outsider. No one asked uncomfortable questions. For the first time in weeks, she felt something she had nearly forgotten. Peace. Over the next several days, Sophia settled into a quiet routine. Every morning, she walked through the gardens before breakfast. Every afternoon, she met with Lucas for pregnancy checkups at his clinic. Every evening, she joined Arthur for dinner. It was during those dinners that she learned the most about her father. Arthur seemed to have endless stories. Fishing trips, business mistakes, family vacations, embarrassing moments Thomas Bennett had hoped nobody would ever repeat. One evening, Arthur laughed so hard he nearly spilled his coffee while describing a camping trip that had gone terribly wrong 30 years earlier. Sophia laughed until tears formed in her eyes. Then she suddenly realized something. For the first time since losing her father, she was hearing new memories of him. Memories she had never known existed. That realization touched her more deeply than any discussion about money or inheritance. Meanwhile, Lucas remained a steady presence throughout her pregnancy. He was careful, patient, and reassuring without being overly protective. He explained every test result in plain language. He answered every question no matter how small. One afternoon after an ultrasound appointment, Sophia sat staring at the screen while two tiny forms moved inside her womb. "They are active today," Lucas said. A smile spread across Sophia's face. "Which one is which?" Lucas pointed gently. "The baby on the left appears to be a boy." Then he pointed again. "And this little troublemaker appears to be a girl." Sophia laughed. "You can already tell she is trouble? Trust me, I have experience." Their eyes met briefly. Neither looked away immediately. The moment lasted only a second, but Sophia noticed it. So did Lucas. Neither mentioned it. As the weeks passed, the twins grew stronger. Sophia grew healthier. The fear that had followed her for so many years slowly began to loosen its grip. Then one rainy evening, Arthur asked her to join him in the library after dinner. When she entered the room, several folders sat neatly arranged on the large wooden desk. Arthur stood beside them. His expression was serious. "Sophia," he said gently, "it is time you learned exactly what your father left behind." Arthur waited until Sophia was seated before opening the first folder. Rain tapped softly against the library windows. The room smelled faintly of old books and polished wood. It reminded Sophia of the small study her father had once kept in their family home. For a moment, she almost expected him to walk through the door carrying a cup of coffee and one of his terrible jokes. Arthur carefully removed several documents and slid them across the desk. "These are copies," he said. "The originals are secured elsewhere." Sophia glanced down at the papers. Most of them meant very little to her at first. She recognized addresses, account summaries, and legal names, but not much else. Arthur noticed her confusion. "Let me put it in plain English." Sophia appreciated that. She had spent enough time around complicated paperwork during the divorce process. "Your father was far more successful than most people realized," Arthur said. "He never liked showing it." That sounded exactly right. Thomas Bennett had driven used trucks long after he could afford new ones. He wore the same watch for 20 years. He believed money should solve problems, not create attention. Arthur continued. "When he realized his health was declining, he wanted to make sure everything would eventually reach you." Sophia stared at him. "Then why did I never know any of this existed?" Arthur sighed. "Because shortly after he updated everything, he passed away unexpectedly. The attorney handling parts of the estate retired. Records were transferred. Some information was lost. Not permanently, just long enough to create confusion." Lucas sat quietly nearby, allowing his father to explain. Arthur pointed toward one page. "Several rental properties. Then another. Investment accounts. Then another. Ownership interests in a few businesses your father helped fund years ago." Sophia felt overwhelmed. Not because she was suddenly wealthy, because she was learning things about her father she had never known. "He never told me." Arthur smiled sadly. "Your father believed you should build your own life first. He wanted you to become your own person, not someone living off his success." Sophia lowered her eyes. That sounded exactly like him too. The conversation lasted nearly 2 hours. By the end, Sophia understood enough to grasp the bigger picture. She was financially secure. Very secure. The inheritance would not solve every problem in her life, but it removed fears she had quietly carried for years. Fears about medical bills, housing, raising 2 children alone if she had to. For the first time since the divorce, she felt the ground beneath her feet becoming solid again. As the weeks turned into months, life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Her pregnancy progressed well. Arthur became increasingly protective in the gentle way fathers often do. Lucas remained a constant presence, not only as her doctor, but as someone she genuinely enjoyed spending time with. They talked about books, movies, childhood memories, and family traditions. Sometimes the conversations lasted far longer than medical appointments required. One afternoon after a routine checkup, Sophia noticed Lucas staring at an ultrasound image longer than usual. Everything okay? She asked. Lucas smiled. Everything is perfect. Then he looked at the image again. I was just thinking how lucky these kids are going to be. The comment stayed with her long after she left. Several months later, on a bright spring morning, the twins finally arrived. After years of heartbreak and disappointment, Sophia held her son first, Ethan. Minutes later, she held her daughter, Lily. Tears streamed down her face as she looked at them. Healthy, beautiful, real. Arthur cried openly when he met them. Lucas looked just as emotional, though he tried harder to hide it. The following evening, while Sophia rested in her hospital room with both babies sleeping nearby, a nurse entered carrying a small stack of mail that had been forwarded from Charleston. Most of it was routine. Then one envelope caught her attention. The sender's name made her stomach tighten instantly. Andrew Whitmore. For several seconds, Sophia simply stared at the envelope. She had not heard from Andrew in months. Not since the divorce had been finalized. During her pregnancy, he had sent a few messages through attorneys and financial representatives, but nothing personal. Nothing that sounded like the man she once knew. Carefully, she opened the envelope. Inside was a short handwritten note. Andrew's handwriting had not changed. She recognized it immediately. Sophia, I heard through mutual friends that you had the babies. Congratulations. I know I probably have no right to say this, but I hope you and the children are healthy and happy. There is something important I need to tell you. Please call me if you are willing. Andrew. Sophia read the note twice before placing it back inside the envelope. There was no explanation, no apology, no details, just a request. She set it aside and looked down at Ethan sleeping peacefully beside Lily. Whatever Andrew wanted, it could wait. Her children mattered more. Over the next 2 years, life moved forward in ways Sophia never thought possible. Ethan grew into a curious little boy who asked questions about everything. Lily developed a stubborn streak that reminded Arthur of someone. Your father, he would say whenever she crossed her tiny arms and refused to back down. Arthur adored both children. The feeling was mutual. The twins followed him around the estate whenever they could. To them, he was simply Grandpa Arthur. Lucas remained a steady part of their lives as well. He attended birthdays, school events, and family dinners. Somewhere along the way, the line between friendship and something deeper quietly disappeared. Nobody announced it. Nobody rushed it. It simply happened. Then one afternoon, nearly 2 years after the twins were born, another letter arrived. This time there was no handwritten note. Instead, it was a formal invitation. Sophia opened it while sitting at the kitchen table. Her expression changed almost immediately. Arthur noticed. Bad news? He asked. Sophia handed him the card. Arthur adjusted his glasses and read silently. Then he shook his head. Interesting. Lucas looked over his shoulder. A few seconds later, he sighed. You have got to be kidding me. The invitation was for Andrew's wedding. He was marrying Chloe. The ceremony would take place at one of Charleston's most exclusive country clubs. Sophia continued reading. Tucked inside was a separate card. Her eyes narrowed. Please join us as we celebrate a new beginning and the family we have always dreamed of building together. There was no signature beneath the sentence. There did not need to be. Victoria's voice practically echoed from the paper. Arthur slowly placed the invitation on the table. That woman never misses an opportunity. Sophia surprised herself by laughing. Not because it was funny, because it no longer hurt the way it once would have. Arthur studied her carefully. Are you upset? Sophia looked toward the backyard where Ethan and Lily were chasing each other through the grass. No, she said honestly. I think I am just amazed they still believe I care what they think. Lucas smiled. Arthur leaned back in his chair and folded his arms. A thoughtful look appeared on his face. One Sophia had learned usually meant he was planning something. Good, Arthur said. Because if we are going to Charleston, we are going properly. Sophia laughed again. Arthur, no. He pointed a finger toward her. For 2 years, you have rebuilt your life. You have raised beautiful children. You have shown more grace than most people could manage. If they invited you hoping to make you feel small, they are about to be very disappointed. Lucas exchanged an amused glance with his father. Sophia shook her head, smiling despite herself. Then Arthur added one final sentence. And there is something else you should know before that wedding. His expression became serious. I received a phone call this morning. Andrew recently learned a piece of information that is about to change everything. Arthur explained it the following morning. A former employee at the fertility clinic had attended a charity event in Charleston a few months earlier. During a casual conversation, someone mentioned Sophia's successful pregnancy after years of infertility. The information eventually reached Andrew through mutual acquaintances. He learned that Sophia had been pregnant when she left his house. What he still did not know was that she had given birth to twins. Arthur preferred to leave that part for later. Some truths were stronger when people saw them with their own eyes. 2 weeks later, they traveled to Charleston. The wedding was held at a private country club overlooking the water. Guests filled the lawn. Soft music played. Servers moved through the crowd carrying trays of drinks. Sophia stepped from the car wearing a simple but elegant blue dress. Ethan held one of her hands. Lily held the other. Lucas walked beside them. Arthur followed a few steps behind. Conversation slowed almost immediately. Heads turned. People whispered. Sophia noticed some familiar faces from years earlier. Former neighbors. Friends of Andrew's family. People who had watched her struggle through 12 difficult years. She kept walking. Near the front of the venue, Andrew saw her. The color drained from his face. His eyes moved from Sophia to the twins, then to Lucas, then back to the children again. He looked as though the ground had shifted beneath him. Victoria reacted next. Her expression froze completely. For years she had dreamed about grandchildren. Now 2 beautiful children stood only a few yards away. Children she had never known existed. Andrew approached slowly. "Sophia," he said. His voice barely worked. Sophia nodded politely. "Andrew." His eyes remained fixed on Ethan and Lily. "Are they?" He could not finish the sentence. Sophia answered anyway. "Yes." Andrew looked at the children again. His eyes filled with disbelief. Sophia suddenly remembered the email she had found among the divorce papers years earlier. The one Victoria had sent to Chloe. "Andrew will finally be free to build the family he deserves." For a long moment, nobody spoke. The sentence seemed almost cruel now. The family they had pushed away was standing right in front of them. Andrew looked overwhelmed. "I did not know." "No," Sophia said calmly. "You did not." He lowered his head. "I found out about the pregnancy a few months ago. Someone connected to the clinic mentioned it to a friend who knew my family." His voice cracked slightly. "I never knew there were children." Sophia studied him carefully. For the first time, she saw genuine regret. Not because his wedding day had been interrupted, because he finally understood what he had thrown away. "The day I came home," she said quietly, "I was carrying the test results. I was on my way to tell you." Andrew closed his eyes. Victoria looked away. Neither had anything to say. There was nothing left to explain. A few moments later, Chloe stepped forward. She looked uncomfortable, as though she had been carrying something heavy for a long time. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly. "I should have walked away the moment I realized what was happening." She glanced briefly toward Victoria. "I was told your marriage was already over. I chose to believe what was convenient." Sophia remained silent and let her continue. Chloe looked back at Andrew and slowly shook her head. "None of this feels like a victory." There was no anger in her voice, only disappointment. Sophia appreciated the honesty. She simply nodded and wished her well. Then she turned toward Lucas. The life she had now mattered far more than the life she had lost. As if reading her thoughts, Lucas reached into his jacket pocket. Arthur immediately smiled. He knew exactly what was coming. Lucas stepped forward and looked directly at Sophia. "You and these kids became the best part of my life long before I realized it," he said. "I do not want another day without you." Then he dropped to one knee. Several guests gasped. Ethan grinned. Lily clapped excitedly, even though she had no idea what was happening. "Sophia Bennett," Lucas said, holding out a ring. "Will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes. This time they were happy tears. She smiled and nodded. "Yes." Applause erupted around them. Lucas stood and kissed her forehead. Andrew said nothing. Victoria said nothing. Their chapter had ended long ago. Months later, Sophia and Lucas married in Savannah, surrounded by family and friends who genuinely loved them. Arthur sat proudly in the front row. Ethan and Lily carried flowers down the aisle. The house that once felt too large for one lonely woman was now filled with laughter, toy boxes, family dinners, and the sounds of 2 growing children. Sophia never returned to Charleston except for occasional visits with old friends. She never looked back hoping for answers. She already had them. Andrew married Chloe, but the celebration everyone expected never truly arrived. Too much had happened. Too much had been lost. Some choices simply stay with people. On quiet evenings, Sophia would sometimes sit on the back porch while Ethan and Lily played in the yard and Lucas grilled dinner nearby. Arthur usually sat beside her with a cup of coffee, watching the children run through the grass. Those moments were never dramatic. They were never grand. They were simply good. And after everything she had survived, good was more than enough. Sometimes the life you spend years chasing is not the one that finally feels like home.